Hello everyone, and welcome back to coverage of Grand Prix Xai-Xai for the MSEM format. I'm Caillou, and today we're going to be watching the quarterfinals match between Test and Espithel. Espithel is on 5-color Thunder Roads controlled, has a titular card in hand. Triple Lightning Helix is a pretty good way to go. It has a bunch of cheap interaction and cheap ramp / card selection to help support it. On the other end of the table, Test is playing Temur Tempo. Both of these decks are pretty battle-tested, I'd say. Espithel won the last GP with this very same deck. Didn't end up actually promoing the Thunder Roads, ended up promoing Rot, which is one of the deck's good board wipes, because apparently with all the cheap threats that kind of carried the day. And Temur Tempo has seen itself in top 8 numerous times with several different pilots. That initial hand from Test was looking a little bit scary with only one hand, now has another, with one land, now has another. Cosmic Sinkhole's cheap interaction is going to be good for keeping Espithel off curve, especially since Espithel whiffed on the one with the world. Really huge delta between the base case and otherwise of this card. But the thing is, Espithel is totally cool to slow roll it for the most part. The initiative is really on Test to do anything here. Okay, draws a Rogar's Frenzy. That's a proactive card that Test can throw out. And then Bounty of the Gardens is also interesting here, but it's only really a 2/2, so I think you probably want to wait until and if you draw another card. Okay, Espithel gonna pass, has a Pitbull up, doesn't have out-of-body experience because it did not name White with Nebula of Empty Gold. This is actually a full art promo, but if we head over the description, you can see that you choose one or more colors, lose life equal to the number of colors you chose, and then you can add 1 mana of a chosen color. So it can be an untapped 5-color land turn 1, if you're willing to pay 5 life. Speaking of losing life, Test is going to run out the Rogar's Frenzy on end. Interestingly, opts not to get a green source for Bounty. I guess the idea is, I'm not going to be casting this anyways until I get more lands, so whatever. But Test missing these land drops is really hurting. Hits an Ignition Point though, so it can continue the burn plan. And with all these Pit Wilts available, maybe not committing to the board is a good idea. Problem, of course, is that Thunder Roads can recoup all of this life loss, especially if augmented. So once, come turn 5, things start to get a little bit hairy for Test. Test should also, I think a thing with Test, if Test tries to run at the Ignition Point on end, Espithel can Bant Command and then just gain Hexproof plus make 2 Knights. Obviously has to tap out to do that, but... And yep, that exact line that I mentioned earlier comes to pass. Ignition Point from Test, but it's immediately going to get countered by the Hexproof on Band Command, and now Espithel has a 4-turn clock on board. And triple Cosmic Sinkhole for Test, just no land city. Okay, back to Espithel's turn, just going to play out a top-decked 1 with the world. Does actually hit a land, so we'll be able to ramp it out. And that does put Espithel at 5 lands. So it has potential for Thunder Roads next turn. Has to pay black-green for a Pitwilt. And obviously, with no Pitwilt targets, it's not as great. If Espithel hits a 6th land, though, going Garth into Thunder Roads with double red is probably pretty good. So I think Espithel should definitely name red here as one of the colors for potential Garth plus... names GB, okay. So unless Espithel top decks a red source, won't be able to do the line of Garth plus Thunder Roads next turn, which I think is kind of bad because you want to be able to have a proactive line that also lets you just murderize Test next turn. Still, swing for 4, swing for another 4 next turn into Pitwilt is not the worst. And despite having 5 lands, Espithel does end up tapping out and will get caught by get tagged by the Cosmic Sinkhole on the Garth cast. Still no lands for Test. Ignition Point coming out. Test gonna just take 4 Espithel's turn from the Knights. 2-turn clock. On end, Test is gonna throw out the ignition point on the knight. But yeah, Espithel is going to do the destroy their own knight move. Pitwilt on their own knight, and in response, Thunder Roads to triple shoot Test in the face. That's game. And Espithel taking game 1 in style. But yeah, Test was just... With only having 2 lands that game, that was kind of just unfortunate for Test. They were on the back foot the entire time. So, looking at sideboard options real quick for Test. I don't hate Spell Pierce here. It's essentially... it can be strictly better Cosmic Sinkhole in all but Garth cases. Still the Pandemonium as well. I think Espithel's entire deck is non-creatures other than Garth. Powder Scatterer is an additional threat. I don't mind either. The problem is that you want to keep a good balance of interaction plus burn. So, off the top of my head, I can't tell you what I'd side out here. It's a lot easier when you have like the deck list laid out and you can like make swaps so that you can kind of keep the ratios in check. But yeah, I'm not exactly sure what the side outs would be in this case. I could see stuff like Veilborn Meddler, but Veilborn Meddler tagging a 1 with the world or a out-of-body experience is really good, so it's hard to say. Especially since Test is now going to be on the play. On Espithel's end, let's pull this over here. But yeah, on Espithel's end, Stand Unassailable is just the nuts versus a burn deck. Rot as a way to just clear their entire board. I could see bringing in a 3rd copy. The Fox is just there as a meme. Anti-Magic and Thought Blossom to win Counter Wars, maybe? I don't know. Same for Sing's Grasp. I don't know if Sing's Grasp is as worth it here, where it's just a -X wipe and you have to invest a lot. I think it's not worth it here because bounty tokens will just outsize it pretty regularly. But so Stand Assailable and Rot for sure. Probably taking out... I'd honestly say probably taking out End of All Things. You only need cheap creature removal to tag stuff, and then I feel like you want the Thought Blossom. Maybe you take out some of the cards like Profound Introspection, which are kind of just very value-y. Because again, my thing is, I think that if Espithel manages to just go the distance with stuff like Stand Unassailable, once you get into the late game, you can comfortably maneuver yourself into a winning position. It's all about just surviving until you get there. So cheap interaction for that purpose. Okay, getting into game 2, a lot better keep for Test. Looks like did keep in the Veilborn Meddlers, has 3 lands, turn 1 Sinkhole, turn 2 Meddler, turn 3 Powder Scatterer. Espithel having the Stand Unassailable here, as well as Cursory Glance plus some other stuff. It's not the worst start. Is just going to shoot Genja Sanctuary and pass. I could see that. It could also tap out. No, it's going to tap out for the stand. If you're Test, I think you just have to Cosmic Sinkhole this. No, Test is going to let it resolve. Okay. I guess actually it doesn't apply to the board, and then in the long run you can just outsize it. On end is going to Rogar's Frenzy. I actually disagree with this a little bit. I think you want to play your Veilborn Meddler first so that you have a threat on board. When you have 2 Veilborn Meddlers, I don't think it makes a lot of sense to keep one up as interaction, especially when you don't have a 1-mana spell to make it counter a 2-mana spell here. Okay, on end, Test is going to exile Rogar's Frenzy from grave, uncounterable tokens coming out. That's a really strong part of Rogar's Frenzy in control/tempo mirrors. And now can start slowly poking Espithel's life total back to its starting amount. Doesn't have a green source for Bounty of the Gardens, though, and that's going to hurt. Test ideally should not tap out. Now that Test has board control, should not tap out at Espithel's end step if Espithel doesn't tap out. Because, again, could get really punished by Band Command. Espithel going to play a second Stand Unassailable, so brought in the extra copies. Okay, so Test is going to play Veilborn Meddler into the Cosmic Sinkhole. This is kind of two-for-oneing themselves. And Espithel never said that the Veilborn Meddler resolves. So this is going to be a judge call real quick, because Espithel could have cursory glanced the Veilborn Meddler on the stack. So that's going to suck. Yeah, at a GP level, you can't just speed through stuff when your opponent has open mana and is a control deck. Huh, so it seems like Espithel's judge call was for something other than... Looks like it was a ruling interaction question rather than like, oh man, I wish I could counter the Veilborn Meddler. So is going to cast Out of Body Experience to exile Veilborn Meddler. Does Last Remembered information or whatever still counter the stand unassailable though? Or would it be 0? So even though Espithel manages to counter the Veilborn Meddler trigger, can't pay 1 for Cosmic Sinkhole due to Shigenja Sanctuary. That is actually hilarious. Shigenja Sanctuary is amazing for 5-color spell decks, but does have drawbacks. So that means Stand Unassailable doesn't resolve. Test does have a good chance of just taking this with burn, especially with back-to-back Rogar's Frenzies. Okay, swings for 3. The thing is, Test should not get hit, because again, if Test Rogar's Frenzies on end here, Espithel, especially with double Band Command, can really just go ham. If you're Test, you have board initiative. Just pass. Just pass the turn. Test going, wait, that's it? Yeah. No, Test is going to get... Test learned nothing from game 1. Espithel immediately going to drop the Band Command. Hexproof plus Knights again. And yeah, that was... You don't have to commit resources if you're already in a winning position. And if your opponent is going to their end step without playing anything with 4 open mana, don't take the bait. Test took the bait and draws a Spell Pierce a turn too late. And yeah, now Test went from a decently winning position to, cool, I'm losing on board. Espithel can just swing with this. The Knights have Vigilance, so Espithel can just swing with the Knights and then just kind of continue to hold up mana. Okay, Test trades the Elementals for the Knights. On end, looks like he's going to try and Rogar's Frenzy again. Will Espithel Band Command here? If Espithel Band Commands, then loses to Spell Pierce. Nope, Espithel's just going to let that happen. And now Test is drawing a bunch of 1-mana counter magic. Not great for Espithel. On end, Espithel's going to run out the Band Command, but Test can just tap 1 to Cosmic Sinkhole this. And I don't know why Espithel is giving themselves Hexproof. It would make a lot more sense for the modes to be bouncing the Elemental token. But yeah, it doesn't matter. Test is just going to Cosmic Sinkhole it. I think that was a bit of a hasty Band Command from Espithel. But on the other hand, I can definitely see Espithel being like, well, if Test had counter magic, would have run it out earlier, but it's been 2 turns. Espithel has had 2 draw steps. Or sorry, Test has had 2 draw steps. Okay, 5th land for Espithel, but it's going to enter tapped. So if Espithel tries to recall Forgotten Aeons here, Test is just going to Spell Pierce it, presumably. And then Espithel's kind of going to just be out of cards. And Test can, as soon as Test hits a green source, just go for the throat. And yeah, recall Forgotten Aeons, Test should 100% Spell Pierce this. If you're going to spend 2 resources on a stand unassailable but not counter the thing that gives them more cards when they're out of cards, I think that's a huge punt. Especially when it gives them more mana. Yeah, okay, he's going to run out the Spell Pierce, thankfully. And Lush Oasis, there it is. I think you should just run this out now. Main phase the Bounty of the Gardens. I guess the reason not to do that is that you can Veilborn plus Bounty. But yeah. Yeah, on end, I would say just go for it. Veilborn plus Bounty of the Gardens. Though I guess you do get blown out by 3rd Band Command. The problem is now Espithel at 6 lands. 1 more land will be able to start coalescing all of these things. So I think you just have to take the initiative. Oh, on end, Test is going to exile one of the other Rogar's Frenzies to make more tokens. Okay. Just keeping back the Veilborn Meddlers as interaction, I guess. I guess it can counter a stand unassailable with Veilborn into Bounty of the Gardens. Oh my god, and there's this, the 7th land for Espithel. And yep, going to try and coalesce the stand unassailable. Test is just going to immediately Powder Scatter that. I think that's a mistake. Should have just Veilborn Meddler plus Bounty of the Gardens there for more initiative. Plus, without Powder Scatter should have been saved for Recall Forgotten Aeons. That is, I think, a mistake from Test. I think that's definitively a mistake from Test. Yeah. Okay. So if Espithel... The thing is, I don't think that it actually matters, because if Espithel tries to coalesce Recall Forgotten Aeons, it's probably mostly okay. No, it's going to stand unassailable. Test can counter this. Veilborn plus Bounty. The mana value still is 2, so Veilborn can still counter it. If Test lets this resolve, it's a huge punt. Test asking what's the mana value of that spell, too. I don't think Test realized that stand unassailable keeps the same mana value. It's going to Veilborn Meddler, and you just play the Bounty, and I think that's just game. And yep, Espithel almost got there that game too. But once again, Test had the initiative throughout lots of that, and Espithel kind of just hemorrhaged cards there. And yeah, that Espithel in chat saying, thanks, Shugenja, very cool. That one turn definitely hurt a lot. But again, stand unassailable, it's good for when you're pairing it with other proactive stuff, but Espithel got the one band command and then wasn't able to regain initiative after that. Test just drew a steady stream of counter magic, and the Rogar's Frenzies being uncounterable threats was huge, even if they were slow threats. So we're going to a game 3. Looks like Espithel did board in the Top Blossom, has turn 2 hold up Top Blossom, turn 3 Recall Forgotten Aeons or Thunder Roads. It's not the best hand, but it's not the worst either. I'm a little surprised by keeping in the Recall Forgotten Aeons in general, actually, now as I mentioned, because I think tapping out at sorcery speed is kind of a death knell versus Test deck. But I guess the logic is if they don't counter it, you get more mana to outpace their taxing counter magic, and it's also a game-winning threat from the graveyard. So on Test side has a bunch of counter magic. Fractured Reach for fixing, turn 1 Spell Pierce, turn 2 Portal Fracture plus still the Pandemonium, and that, or Veilborn Meddler. Just a lot of options here, honestly. Okay, Espithel going to be opening up with Shugenja Sanctuary. Ooh, Cane Dancer, along with Still and Portal Fracture is just gas. Okay, it looks like Espithel's probably going to run out turn 2 stand unassailable. And think if you're Test, free Spell Pierce. Yep, Spell Pierce is going to come down to counter that. And then more cheap counter magic. Yeah, you just drop the Magmatic Torrent untapped. If Espithel does nothing, you just play Veilborn Meddler and pass. Pass back to your turn, presumably. Ooh, and Espithel just going to play Mountain and pass. Presumably going to either Cursory Glance the Veilborn Meddler or Thunder Roads it. And Test getting an Island. Yeah, actually has to get it. I was thinking could get a Pain Duel, but Island also works. Is thinking about it. I think the play I would make is just tapping out for Veilborn Meddler here, but there's also definitely reasons not to. I think it's safest to do it when Espithel has 3 mana, because whatever they can leverage on you, it won't be banned command levels of oof ouch my bones. And if you safely resolve this, then you're off to the races, yeah. Veilborn Meddler coming down. Espithel should just answer this on the spot. I think that Espithel should Cursory Glance it. Espithel is going to let it resolve and not do anything. Is Espithel going to do anything before? Is Espithel going to Thunder Roads it then? Wow, that is really surprising to me that Espithel is just... I guess the idea is to force Test to tap out on... No, isn't even going to Thunder Roads then. I think that's kind of a misplay from Espithel. They just wasted a turn cycle there when they could have interacted with the Veilborn Meddler. Yeah, I really disagree with that. Test not hitting any more lands is going to hurt here. But still does have two pieces of counter magic up, and can also, depending on what Espithel does, Yeah, I think you just produce Panya here. It's safe to Panya here, and even if Espithel has Band Command, you have a Cosmic Sinkhole for it. So, no harm, no foul. In response, Espithel is going to Thunder Roads? No, he's just going to Cursory Glance it. Okay. I mean, trading down in tempo totally works for Test here. Especially since still gets a counter on Veilborn. So that's going to still swing in for some good damage. And a third land, really good here because it allows Test to have double counter magic in the form of Still plus Portal Fracture. Still or Portal Fracture plus Cosmic Sinkhole. Espithel keeps hitting lands. I think Espithel is probably going to try and either Thunder Roads or Recall Forgotten Aeons with Thought Blossom back up here. And is going to get blown out by Test having 1-mana counter magic. And yeah, these Nebulas not doing Espithel any favors with the life loss. Okay, you're going to Shock Self for green-white. And Test is going to crack the Shrine. Espithel could actually just do it in response to the Shrine crack. And Test will guaranteed not have 2 counterspells. Unless it's like Spell Pierce plus Spell Pierce. But doesn't end up doing that. Bounty for as another threat is really good here. The problem is, because Test fetched a mountain, won't be able to cast Bounty plus hold up Cosmic Sinkhole. Which means I don't think that you should cast the Bounty, especially when you're still winning on board. Espithel obviously... and now that Espithel has 6 mana, let's hope that Espithel doesn't make the same Shigenja Sanctuary mistake as last time, but can cast either RFE or Thunder Roads with Thought Blossom backup. Can actually cast Recall Forgotten Aeons into Thunder Roads, and then Thunder Roads will get augmented. And that's a huge problem for Test, because can't actually really reasonably answer that. So yeah, I'm just going to drop the Recall Forgotten Aeons. So Test is thinking about whether to try and counter this. Is going to Portal Fracture this? That seems bad. Am I crazy? Okay, he's going to Portal Fracture it. That actually seems pretty bad because it can just pay 2. Espithel can just pay 2 for recall. Espithel has actually a bunch of ways to respond here. Yeah, in response, it's just going to Thunder Roads, Augmented. Test can save the Veilborn Meddler by... Oh, and Espithel is just going to do 9 at Test's face. Wild. Test is going to counter one of them with the Cosmic Sinkhole. I think you just take the 9 to the face, honestly, and save your counter magic for the RFE and Thanasalable Engrave, especially since, at least, I guess we know that, oh wait, is it going to be able to come? It's not actually going to be able to come. No, it isn't able because Pungawigas has the Swamp. So next turn, Espithel is going to have 7 mana, is going to start coalescing. 4th land here is actually incredibly clutch. Allows for Still the Pandemonium. Actually, no, it doesn't. It allows for Still the Pandemonium plus Cane Dancer, but still can't Bounty plus Still, which is an issue here. But Veilborn is still chipping in nicely. Despite gaining a whopping 9 there, Espithel is still just shy of a 3-turn clock. And it'll become a 3-turn clock if Espithel tries to coalesce something here. Could also try to Singularity's Grasp. No, Singularity's Grasp X equals 4 feels like a really bad idea. Or even X equals 5 feels like a really bad idea. Actually, this is... The terrifying line actually here is Espithel decides to coalesce something. Cane Dancer, Flashback, Portal Fracture, get 2 tokens. So you put 4 more power because Veilborn grows. On end, Bounty of the Gardens, it's 4. Veilborn grows into 6. And is that 1 off lethal? Yeah, that's 1 damage off lethal. So if Test top decks a burn spell, it'll be lethal. So yep, going to try and coalesce the RFE. And this is a free Cane Dancer into Portal Fracture here. And actually, wait, no. This is lethal. Because the Portal Fracture counts as another spell on its own right. So Veilborn gets buffed twice. And Espithel saying in chat, yeah, not killing the Meddler cost them the game. And that is true. On end, play the Bounty of the Gardens and win the game, baby. And that's game. And with that, Test takes our quarterfinals match 2-1 and advances into the semifinals. That was a pretty down-to-the-wire set, as I feel like all Temur tempo sets are. Yeah, good games to both of the players. Unfortunately, Espithel will not be able to go for the two-peat, but it's been exciting to see Test play the format and also try out a bunch of different decks and perform well in top 8s with them. And Temur Tempo, I believe, while it has done well, I don't remember if it's ever gone the distance. I don't think it has. So let's see if Test can finally make it happen. But yeah, until next time, this is going to be Caillou, signing off.